So my general theory on that, ice fishing, open water, spoons, crankbaits, whatever, is a lot of times I'll look at the lake and I'll try and determine if there's a good population of some kind of forage to eat. For example, I'm seeing clouds of bait fish come by, or maybe on the camera I see some fish go, or some bait go by or whatever. If there's a lot around to eat, or that maybe the fish are really plump and healthy, so you know there's a lot for them to eat, a lot of times then I don't want to match the hatch. If they want to eat an emerald shiner or a smelt or whatever, and there's lots of them around, they'll go eat that. So then I go off color. I go gaudy, I go purples, I go reds, I go pinks, whatever it might be, to try and give them something different to eat. Now, if the fish look like they're hungry, their bellies are indented, and I'm not seeing any bait anywhere, it just seems like there's no food around, then I'm going to get them what they're used to eating. If it's a perch situation, fire tigers are going to be on. If it's a smelt situation, black and silver is going to be on. So match the hatch when there ain't a lot of hatch around, otherwise go gaudy.
I'm kind of on record for saying that color doesn't matter, and I think it does matter in certain situations, but it's not the first variable I'm trying to worry about. So automatically, color takes a backseat to so many different things. I'm fairly match the hatch when it comes to panfish. I'm looking at bloodworms. I'm thinking of caddis and mayfly and stonefly type nymphs and larvae. So the browns, the blacks are super good colors. But there's also times where visually I'm trying to attract a fish's attention, in murky water especially, and then I go for contrast. I want a jig head color that is starkly different than the plastic that I tip it with or the bait, and to me that's all about visual acuity in a fish being able to see something. If they're all the same color, it kind of blends in better with the background, but if they're starkly different, I think it aids a fish in murky water being able to see what you're trying to show it.
Well, it depends upon if I'm live bait fishing, fishing with the Eurolarbor, or if I'm fishing with plastic. If I'm fishing with live bait, I said maggots is what I fish with most of the time. I'm pretty much sticking with red glow drop kick. I got that on my line most of the time, and I'm continually putting on fresh live bait. So you got fresh juices, fresh scent, and plus we got a little color there in the Eurolarbor that I like to use. So, I think fresh live bait will override color in most cases. But now when you're fishing plastic, it gets to be a little bit different. You need to be more of a match the hatch thing. If you're fishing, down in the mud in the bottom, little, red polys that kind of imitate bloodworms is a good thing. If you're fishing, sometimes basin fish, the little bluegill looking lures. That's something I've kind of got into a lot the last couple of years, is, taking a caviar jig and taking a jamie and putting it on sideways. And it's amazing how it imitates sunfish. It not only catches panfish, but it catches walleyes too.
So I definitely use a lot of natural colors matching the hatch. These really clear glacial lakes, I tend to use more natural type of baits. However, in low light and stained water, it's just the opposite for me. So it's a little bit of half and half. If I'm fishing clear lakes like Mille Lacs, Winnebagoche, where it's just gin clear, I like that. Especially on high sun days, I love the flash of like a gold or a gold perch, something like that. However, as soon as you start getting into those low light situations, you see it almost immediately, where I'm not getting them on those more metallic or natural colors. And instantly you see these fish start striking, the glow colors and the more vibrant colors. I really like UV, this whole UV spectrum that we've seen the last few years. I think underneath an ice sheet really makes a big difference. And I've seen these UV colors really stand out in those low light situations. And especially those bright glow colors in extremely stained water. I like loud and proud, trying to get fish to your location, especially if you're out in a deeper basin situation. I want to call fish to my location. It's not like trolling a crankbait at 2 miles an hour in the open water. You're sitting on that one hole, and even though you may be on the move, hole hopping, ice trolling, you're not moving as fast as you would pulling a shad wrap in the summer. And so I want something loud and proud where those fish are going to come in and attack it.
Whatever works. I mean, that's where some lakes are so weird. Like, you would think, like Upper Red Lake, for example. I mean, crazy stuff works up there. Crazy stuff works up there. But then when the bite is absolutely on fire where they're hitting anything. So it doesn't tell you anything, it just tells you that the fish are extremely active and they're chewing on everything, right? But when you're on a normal fishing day on Upper Red Lake, the water's dirty, it's shallow, those fish should be spooky. They should be the spookiest walleyes in the state of Minnesota, and they're not. But they also really like natural colors, silvers and greens, silvers and blues, golds and blacks. I mean, they love all of this stuff to where sometimes when you roll a spoon, a glow spoon in front of them, they'll freak out and kind of, you know, come back and look. But if you roll a silver tumbler or whatever in front of them, they just drill it. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I use a lot of different colors depending on what works. Mille Lacs is another one. Vastly clear body of water. Pink UV happens to be a really good color on Mille Lacs. It shouldn't be, but it is. It's a wildly good color. So I guess that's kind of my opinion is, this is where the tackle manufacturers really have the ice fishermen, is you can't really say, hey, dark body of water, you need these baits. You need a ton of baits to be able to grind through and figure out what's the best baits on every body of water. I almost wish I owned a tackle company now after saying that.
I'm more of a match the hatch guy when it comes to like crankbaits, but that doesn't mean that I haven't seen some tremendous success with some really oddball colors. You know, Lake of the Woods really stands out. You catch a lot of fish with, and Lake Erie would be, you know, very similar. You can do really well with some naturalistic colors, but boy, if that water turns a little bit dirty at all, and Lake of the Woods in the summer is somewhat dirty, those bright, gaudy colors can shine. So I think they both have their time and place, and I think that people have to remain open-minded enough that they need to possibly do both. You know, and I hate to say it, but almost any variation in between.
There was a study made many years ago by a doctor out east, and he said that he would break down what walleyes could actually see in the color spectrum, and it was always shades of orange, yellow and green. Those were the spectrum colors, and the least one was red or black. And I can tell you, I've caught a lot of walleyes in red and black, and you know, I'm not saying he wasn't wrong because he was a lot smarter than I was, but I think what we need to do is always never think that we know exactly this is the color that they will only bite on, because they'll prove you wrong every time.
You know, I've gone both ways. On the color spectrum, I've had great luck with bright colors that seem to contrast against dark water. For example, I've had great luck with UV, even though nobody can explain it. You know, there's a lot of fish that we fish for that, you know, by the book, from what we know from science, is that, you know, they can't see, they don't have the rods and cones in their eyes to even see UV once they're, you know, get beyond the fingerling stage. Yet at the same time, I've seen it over and over where there's something to it, because I've seen, you know, it could be coincidence, but I think there's more to it. So, you know, I like, you know, a lot of bright colors, but at the same time, purple, black, and blue, motor oil are phenomenal colors. So I either go dark and natural or bright, you know, chartreuse, white, you know, those two extremes. And beyond that, I don't get too specific. You know, like if I'm using a jig that, say, it's got, you know, kind of that Easter egg palette where it's chartreuse and maybe a little bit of pink and a little bit of white on it or whatever, it ain't the end of the world to me if one's got a blue eye and one of them's got a red eye. I don't think that matters to the fish. I don't think it gets to be real specific. I think it's just generalities. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you look at underwater videos, sometimes the dark colors contrast the best and the bright colors kind of get lost in the background. And there's other times where, you know, your obvious bright colors, that fire tiger type palette or chartreuse or white, orange, you know, is very visible. Sometimes, obviously, when you're in the, you know, obviously it doesn't matter when you're in the right spot, right? So you can be in the right place at the right time with the wrong color and do really, really good. And if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time with the right color, it don't matter, right?
And contrast, in my opinion, is more important. Standing out, being the standout injured minnow over the one swimming in the school, you need to stand out. So contrasting colors to my background are generally going to produce more fish, in my opinion.
So the water is green, say the water's like got a lot of...
If it looks really bright green, I'm going to go with the darker colors
black, brown.
to get some standout, because the, you know, a red, a black, those are all going to stand out. Grapes, the dark, like grape colors and stuff, those are going to stand out, and some of those colors of water.
So it's about what that color looks like in the water to the fish. It's not a color choice that I make. I let the fish kind of tell me. That's the whole thing with the plastics is, and being able to switch colors and do it quickly is a huge key for figuring out colors on a lake. But yeah, it's about contrast for me. I want the bait to stand out as much as possible. I don't want it to just disappear. If I'm sight fishing and I drop a olive green fly down a hole that's olive green looking all around, it disappears. I can't follow it, I can't see it. So then I need to put a maggot on it so I can trace it if I'm sight fishing it. So I would say, you know, contrast colors to my background.
I'm old school from the sense that I start my presentations on any body of water with gaudy colors in darker water and more natural colors in clearer water. But I also will go to more flash in clear water, and then I start adding rattles and noise and more gaudy in dark water. But over time, one thing I've learned is that is not a hard and fast rule. You can mix this, match this up. In fact, it's probably it's going to evolve and change depending on where you are and the time of day and all that. And UV colors, I think the adding of UV coatings on a lot of the baits now have really changed how fish relate to what we're throwing them, because we don't see like they see.
Whether it's perch or bloodworms or zooplankton or whatever's in a fish's stomach, you kind of want to match that. But there is nothing in a water column that looks like a tiger beetle. There's nothing in the water column that looks like an electric perch. I think just like anything else, switching colors creates more strikes, and UV has proved itself in tournaments, in the walleye tournaments, and I believe anything you could do to increase your advantages, like even glow, when that came out, yeah, you catch more crappies. I think fish focalize on different things. I'll go to Lake of the Woods, everybody likes pink or gold, and I'll go up there and I'll use green with a little bit of chartreuse and glow, and it works great. Light sticks are by far the most prolific thing I've seen in producing fish now. So it's a cool technology. Probably 20 years ago would have been banned, but I've caught perch after dark and they can't see very well, and you'll just keep catching perch. You get an extended bite, and walleyes will come in and eat it. And I know this for a fact. But there's a time when I don't use glow. Pressured situations, even in dark water, black, purple, these odd colors catch fish. And it's not about how bright you can glow them in. Sometimes it's how subtle you can make them bite. And in a situation where there's a lot of lines down, you throw down a lure that is even clear or matches the color of the water, the fish still find it. They can sense it. They're just like, fish themselves their senses are so heightened in their environment. They're kind of like Daredevil, the Marvel comic guy, that he's blind, but he fights people by the sound of their fist. When you're jigging that bait, they know it's there. You don't think the fish know it's there? It's because you're jigging wrong. Sometimes swimming the bait in your hole before you drop it, watch what kind of action you're giving it, is more important than color, but always bring a lot of color.
I think if you had to get one color and fish it only, I think if you bought a green pumpkin, whatever you're fishing, you're going to be set for life. And that's true in Minnesota and all across the country. That color, for some reason, is absolutely deadly. But color is one of those things that it can either make a big difference or it makes no difference at all. I've found that the presentation, whether it's a hard bait or a soft bait or speed, the vibration, whatever the action, is more important more often than color. But having said that, if I had one tip for anglers, if you've got 3 people in the boat or 3 people on the ice, don't all start off with green jigs and white plastics. So maybe have somebody use something bright and bulky, have somebody start with something that's dull and color, and something maybe that's in between, and let the fish tell you what you want, because there's times when color can make a big difference, and if you're all fishing the same colors, you're never going to find the right one. And if you do make color changes, don't go from a light green to a dark green. Go to a very light color to something that's very dark, or the opposite directions.
I'm a believer in color. I'm a believer in it more so in really, really clear water than I am in stained water. Am I changing colors a lot? I'm using changing baits and
You know, I've got my handful of favorites that I kind of believe, like on the Great Lakes, you know, you're dealing with like a lot of blue silver, green silver, maybe some chartreuse and stuff like that. And then if I go fish inland for walleyes, you know, I might be using some other different colors and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm a believer in color, but at the same token, I've been fishing in spots and areas where I don't believe it matters one bit. If you've been dropping down, this guy's getting them on a black tungsten, this guy's getting them here on this jig, and he's using a vertical, he's using a horizontal. There's just, it's the last hour of light, people are catching fish. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the color thing, I believe, is not as important as it is who's fishing it and how you're fishing it, you know, in my opinion.
Colors are always the last thing in terms of a key to wire up a bite. But in many cases, that last ingredient, whether it's a gaudy color or whether it's a naturalistic color, makes all the difference in the world.